Hello everyone, my name is Gregory Schnese and let's talk about Bitcoin Borrow Die. As always, these videos are for educational and entertainment purposes only. They're not financial or tax advice. Today we'll discuss deploying your fiat and we'll look at two options between stretch and real estate for income generation. Bitcoin Borrow Die is powered by Bitstack. Build your wealth in Bitcoin terms. Visit us at www.trybitstack.com. So last night I went out with a friend for dinner and he was telling me about our property that he purchased to rent out to generate income. And while I thought it was interesting and learned a lot about that process, I just kept thinking in the back of my mind, would I rather do something like that or just buy stretch and collect the dividend payout from that? So this video is going to walk through some of the numbers, and I want to share some of the research that I did this morning to try to get a feel for which one's better, how does it work with your lifestyle, and what can you expect for returns. But the main question here is, as we stack Bitcoin, as we grow over time, what are we going to do with the money? So we could take out a loan against our Bitcoin to buy property. We could take out a loan to buy stretch. There's a million other things that we could do. We could continue to roll the loans forward, but for people who are looking to generate income, we're going to discuss the difference between buying property to rent it out versus owning stretch. And the first option here is rental property. So you buy something, this is a physical asset, a house, a duplex, small multifamily, and you're renting it out, and your tenants are paying you monthly, and that's income that you can use for your lifestyle and whatever you want. There's a bunch of steps that go into owning property. So like finding and managing tenants, handling repairs, taxes, insurance, vacancies, capital expenditure, all sorts of stuff. And then looking at it from the income or income style point of view, it's active to semi-active. You kind of have to do some stuff. You do own tangible assets that can appreciate and hedge inflation, which is key and really interesting. But just on a high level, looking at $1 million in property and renting it out, you can gross about, let's say, 6 to 7% per year, about maybe $60,000 to $70,000. But then you have to maintain it, and you have all these operating expenses. So you're really pocketing anywhere between like $30,000 and $40,000 per year, which is about like 3 to 4% net. And this is after finding tenants, answering the phone when the toilets are clogged, all that good stuff. And then looking at the second option, stretch here, it's just totally passive. Of course, you just buy it from your brokerage fund. It stays at $100 per share. It's paying out 11.5% now per year, paid monthly. Of course, there's no tenants, no repairs, no emergencies, nothing like that. And on your $1 million investment, you would generate $115,000 per year in cash dividends that are just paid monthly, zero overhead cost, and they're tax deferred as well. And so why does this matter for Bitcoin Borrow Die? Again, like as we grow our stacks, we need, figure out something to do with the money. We want to generate an income portion of our portfolio so that we never have to sell and we always can have our stacks appreciating. There's a tax-free liquidity, of course, when we borrow against our stacks. The rental route is interesting because it does give us income and a tangible hedge against inflation, but there's work involved. Or if you pay somebody to do the work, then you're cutting more into your margin and to your return. And then there's options like stretch, like SEDA, where you just buy the thing and you literally don't do anything except collect money, which is very, very convenient. So when we kind of look at putting $1 million into one of these options, again, at 11.5%, Stretch is going to pay us $115,000 per year, paid out monthly, with basically doing nothing, which is, the overhead is amazing because there is none. And then for a rental property where we put $1 million into like small residential, duplexes, that type of thing, hopefully we can generate around $70,000 in gross rent, and this would be about a 7% return. But then we have all the expenses, which could basically be about half of that. So we're looking at $35,000 returned, which is about 3.5%. So just in terms of income generation, Stretch is really beating the rental, and there's little overhead. There's no expenses. There are a few nuances to this though too. So again, it's like for net cash per year, Stretch is going to pay more than rental will net after all the expenses and overhead, but the Stretch payout is fixed. So it's going to stay at $100 per share at par and just continue to pay out the 11.5%. Over the long period, this will probably come down a little bit, but there's not, your stack of Stretch is not appreciating, and it's not supposed to appreciate. It's supposed to stay at $100 per share. So with the rental side over here, we still can continue to get this like 2.5%, 4.5% return, and we can keep that percent relatively fixed because we can raise rates over time, or raise the rent over time. So that's one thing that's really interesting on the property side. When you look at overhead and expenses, again, basically 50% of what we're bringing in is going into overhead and expenses, and then for Stretch it's 0. Hours required, it kind of depends on what you're owning, but AI is estimating about 10 to 20 hours for $1 million property per month, and then with Stretch it's 0. You don't, no work is involved. This is a job. This is like at minimum a part-time job just to maintain the property. And then again, if you pay somebody to do this, you're cutting into your net cash. When we look at liquidity, if we wanted to exit for whatever reason, selling houses, selling property is expensive. I mean, if you have tenants, you probably have to wait for their lease to end. There's a lot of fees involved with that. And then to exit a Stretch position is just a simple sell order. Appreciation, again, we kind of touched on this a little bit. So this is one of the highlights of property, in the sense that you can increase rent over time and the property itself gains value over time. So you can have your asset base continue to grow, and then you can have the net returns basically staying around this 2.5 to 4.5%, but with increased rents over time. And that kind of goes to the inflation hedge as well. So we could do some of this with Stretch, where if you took, instead of taking all of the 11.5% being paid out, you could put 3 or 4% basically back to rebuy Stretch, and this would help cut down on like the inflation hedge, because it would stay at $100 per share, but your number of shares would increase over time if you're reinvesting part of it. But again, that's cutting into your 115,000 up here. So there's a few different ways to do this. I mean, there's more optionality with Stretch, which is really nice, but just a few different ways to compare these two assets. And then just kind of the bottom line, looking at this, if you just want income and you really don't want to do work, you don't want to be a landlord, Stretch is a great option. SAID is a great option. These things that are just generating such high dividends where you buy the asset and then you just don't have to do anything after that. That's amazing, and it's a great lifestyle choice if you're looking for that type of retirement and living. Rentals are good as well if you want to put in the work or if you're going to hire somebody to do that for you. The hard asset part is nice again because the property itself is appreciating and should basically be matching inflation, and you can increase the rent as well. But it just depends on, do you want to be called in the evening when there's an issue with the roof or when things start to leak? If you're looking for some type of part-time job in retirement for something to do, that could be a really good option. But overall, I just thought it was a really interesting conversation with my friend, and we were, again, going through rental properties versus stretch. I kind of land on the stretch side because it's just so much easier. There's so much less effort involved, and you just get paid every month. But to each their own. I wanted to walk everyone through this comparison. Leave your comments, ask me questions, and share and like this video.